Magandang umaga mga guwapo at magagandang mag-aaral ng DEVCOM 144. Ako nga pala si Sir EJ at kayo ay nanonood ng pangalawang bahagi ng Video Learning System tungkol sa disenyong pambisual o VLS on Visual Design. Sa bahagi nito ng VLS, atin muling babalikan ang tatlong paksang tinalakay ninyo sa DEVCOM 40 class. Ang mga paksang ito ay color, layout, at cubes of design. Naturalmente, magkakaroon tayo ng quiz mamaya. Kaya, simulan na natin ang panonood.
Hello again. I hope you're doing fine with your LSD plan. To help you further in the design of instructional material that you will use for your learning system, let's discuss the third element of visual design. At the end of this lesson, we should be able to enumerate the functions of color in a given visual media, discuss the color schemes or combinations, and apply the guidelines on using color. This topic is a bit long, so please be free to go back to any part of the lesson or pause if you feel that you need more time in processing our discussion. Color is an important component in visual design. It adds aesthetic appeal to our visuals. Let's take a look at these posters. Poster A is rendered in black and white, while poster B in full color. If these two posters are put side by side on a bulletin board, which of these two do you think will attract attention better? Probably, poster B will attract more attention because it heightens the realism of image by showing its actual colors. Colors are also used to emphasize focal point in a message. Have you seen the Holocaust film Schindler's List? If yes, do you remember the iconic scene of the little girl in red coat walking down the street? This is the only color in that black and white film. What do you think is the message that it would like to convey? In addition, colors aid in recognition or identity. One classic example of this function is how we write our notes in class. Do you still use different colored pens when you write notes? For example, we use red pens in writing the concept and black pen for its definition. This helps us to easily remember our notes. Finally, colors add meaning to a message. Perhaps you have discussed in your other classes about the meaning of certain colors. Now recall some warning signs. Most of them are rendered in red, right? This is because red also means danger. This means that when we are designing a visual material, we have to consider our message and accentuate it with the corresponding color to help us deliver the message more effectively. Perhaps one of the most difficult steps in designing effective instructional materials is putting color to our visuals. We can be guided by the principles and techniques in color scheme in selecting the most appropriate color combination. Do you still remember this figure? This is our color wheel. It is also known as the prime color system. It has 12 major colors, which can be grouped into 3. We can use this as our guide in combining colors. These are the 6 color schemes or combinations. Are these familiar? Try to recall each one of them. The first color scheme is called monochromatic. In this scheme, we choose one color, for instance, blue, and apply various shades or tints. Imagine your room with a monochromatic theme. Do you like it? Here are more examples of the monochromatic color scheme. Try to recognize the base color. The fourth color combination is called split complementary. This consists of any one color and the two colors beside its opposite. Is it confusing? Let's refer back again to our color wheel. What are the two colors that are split complementary with orange? In determining the two colors, let's find the color that is direct complementary with orange, and that is blue. Now the two colors beside blue are the colors that are split complementary with orange. So if you answered blue-green and blue-violet, you are correct. Pause for a while and identify the colors that are split complementary with violet. The fifth color scheme is double complementary. This is simply choosing two sets of direct complementary colors. For example, in our color wheel, green and red are double complementary with red-orange and blue-green. Let's take a look at some examples and how this scheme is used. Finally, the sixth color scheme is called triadic. This combines three colors that form a triangular shape on the color wheel. For example, red, blue, and yellow are triads. Orange, green, and violet are triads. Here are examples of materials using this combination. This ends our lesson on color. In summary, we have talked about the functions of color,
makulay ang mundo, lalo na raw kung may pag-ibig. sa tinubuang lupa. Akala nyo kung ano, no? Pero ano ba itong kulay ng pag-ibig na to? Pwedeng pula, pwedeng berde, pwedeng gray, at pwede rin namang itim. Bahala na kayong manghula kung anong ibig sabihin ng mga kulay na to. Basta ang alam ko, dapat gumamit kayo ng mga color scheme sa MBLS ninyo. Samantala, heto naman ang pangalawang video.
The last lesson on visual design elements that we're going to discuss is about how we are going to put together the elements in a given visual space. At the end of this lesson, we should be able to discuss the different types of layout and enumerate the factors to consider in layouting. Let's begin our discussion. Layout or composition refers to the arrangement of pictorial elements and words or texts to be included in a visual material on a given space. In general, there are two types of layout. The first type is called symmetrical or formal layout. In this layout, we divide the visual space either vertically, horizontally, or diagonally, and distribute the elements of two sides of a given axis to come up with a balanced layout. The second general type of layout is called asymmetrical or informal layout. In this layout, visual elements are distributed on an uneven weight in a given space. Aside from these two general types, there are also other ways to arrange the elements. First, we can also use the central axis layout. In this layout, divide the space either vertically, horizontally, or diagonally with one line and place the visual elements along the axis. Here are some examples. Look how the texts and visual cues were arranged. This layout basically looks like your symmetrical layout, isn't it? Second, we can also use the two-axis layout. To do this, we divide the space vertically and horizontally into two lines and place the visual elements in any of the four boxes, like in this example. This type of layout may be symmetrical or asymmetrical depending on the placement of your elements. Another way of arranging the elements is to use the 1/3, 2/3 layout. In this layout, we divide the space into 1/3, 2/3 portions, either vertically or horizontally, and place the visual elements in any of these portions. Let's take a look at this example. Here, we can see that the visual is placed in the 2/3 portion, while the text occupies the 1/3 portion. Here are more examples. Notice how this layout is used in different ways. The last type is called the rule of thirds layout. In this layout, we divide the visual space into 3 equal parts horizontally and vertically. Look at the points where the lines intersect. These are the areas that we can place the visual elements. Here are some examples of the rule of thirds layout. Notice the difference between this layout and the 1/3, 2/3 layout. Take note that in this layout, elements are placed in the points of intersection. After determining the type of layout in designing our visual materials, let us now talk about some factors that can affect our composition. The first factor to consider is eye movement. Bear in mind that different cultures have different ways of reading and viewing. In our case, we read from left to right, top to bottom. Most of the time, we follow the Z pattern when looking at and reading a visual. This tells us that when designing a visual material, we should place the most important element, let's say the title, slogan, or the illustration, to strategic areas of our visual space. Another important factor to consider is the proportion of elements to the given visual space. Let's take a look at these two movie posters. Which one do you prefer? Poster A looks cluttered, isn't it? While poster B has enough breathing spaces or white spaces for our viewers' eyes to rest. We should also control the line of sight or action. This means that we should put more space or area where the subject is facing or is about to move, because viewers will tend to look in this direction too. Finally, to be more effective, our layout should be dynamic and interesting. We can do this by avoiding dead center. Remember that there are various ways to lay out. It will really help us a lot if we pretest our visual material so we can select which one delivers message more effectively. This ends our discussion on layout. In this lesson, we studied the different types of layout and discussed some useful guidelines in layouting. We will have more discussions and exciting learning activities in our class. See you!
Ayan, nakadalawang video na tayo. Isa na lang. At ito ang cubes of design. Pakihanda na ang papel at panulat para sa quiz mamaya.
We have finished our discussion on the elements of visual design. Now for today's lesson, we will be talking about design principles. At the end of this lesson, we should be able to identify the 5 principles of visual design and analyze the principles of design used in visuals. Before we start, here are some reminders for this lesson. Please be free to go back to any part of the lesson or pause if you feel that you need more time in processing our discussion. If there are parts that confuse you, please write them down and we'll discuss them with our lecture instructor. You can also post them in the discussion board of our LMS and let's discuss with our classmates. Let's start our lesson. For our instructional materials to be more effective, there are certain principles of visual design that we can apply. In general, we can refer to these principles as cubes of visual design. C in cube stands for contrast. This creates an overall effect which will make our visual materials stand out favorably among others and avoids monotony in the shape and arrangement of visual elements. Kindly check the bulletin boards outside your classrooms here in the university. Which posters or flyers stand out? How is contrast used? In general, there are several ways to make your visual material stand out. You may use contrasting values or color, particular texture of paper, or unusual shapes. For example, design a poster that is circular instead of the usual rectangular shape. How about putting some 3-dimensional elements instead of just using 2-dimensional photographs? U stands for unity. As a principle of design, unity tells us that we should create a sense of oneness by relating or grouping visual elements and words to achieve a unified composition. In other words, the elements that we will put in our visual material should complement one another. These are examples of posters using this principle. What are the techniques used in these posters to highlight unity of the elements? Poster A uses the overlapping technique. See how the texts are overlapped to the illustration. This gives us an impression that the texts are usually part of the illustration because it is placed within the visual space allotted for the illustration. Poster B, on the other hand, uses borders to fence in the elements. It gives us an idea that all the elements inside the border or frame are grouped together because they complement each other in delivering the message. Poster C displays unity using the repetition of color. It shows us that all the elements are grouped together because they have the same theme color. B in our design principle stands for balance. When designing a communication material, we should arrange the visual elements to achieve a pleasing distribution of weight within the layout. As we have discussed in the elements of design, balance can be done using symmetrical and asymmetrical layout. These are examples of balance. What kind of balance is achieved in poster A? How about poster B? Just always remember that effective materials are those which have dynamic and moving layout. E stands for emphasis. This principle highlights a single element as the focal point or center of interest and attention. Since not all parts of the layout can be equal in importance, we should decide which parts are the most important and should stand out from the rest to attract the attention of the viewer. Look at this example. What is the primary message of this poster? How is emphasis used in delivering the message? What elements are emphasized? There are a variety of ways to emphasize an element. We can use color, size, shape, or texture. In addition, other visual cues such as bullets, arrows, numbers, and other directing devices may be used. S stands for simplicity. This element is probably one of the most important principles. As we always say in communication, less is more. In designing a visual material, we should take note that the fewer elements into which a given space is divided, the more pleasing it is to the eye. Our visual should contain only the key elements. We should eliminate unnecessary details and use simple background. This ends our discussion on the cubes of visual design. We'll have more discussion and exciting activities inside the class. Have a good day!
Tapos na? Okay. Dahil dyan, magkuquiz na tayo. Masdang mabuti ang poster na ito at ipaliwanag kung saan ito nagkamali. Bakit ganyan ang design na napili? Magbigay ng 3 magkakaibang puna tungkol sa design ng poster na ito. Madali lang ba ang pagsusulit? Kaya-kayang sagutan, hindi ba? At dahil dyan, kaya-kaya na rin natin i-disenyo ang ating MBLS sa DEVCOM 144. Dito na nagtatapos ang pangalawang bahagi ng VLS na muling naglalarawan sa atin ng paksang visual design. Ako muli si Sir EJ at maraming salamat sa inyong pagtsatsaga at sana ay makakuha kayo ng uno sa MBLS project na gagawin ninyo. Maraming salamat!